to get people into the city by public transport, so they don't all drive to PJ, they don't all drive to KL. The challenge is how do you connect many areas which are still unconnected to the backbones, your MRT and LRTs, and still unconnected to trunk bus services. Why aren't we rolling out more buses faster? London has approximately the same population and the same land size as the Klang Valley, and they have 7,500 buses. We have 1,500 buses. I think the number is still correct, and not even all of them are operating on the road due to lack of drivers.
Yeah, probably still 1,000 buses that are on the road every day.
900 the last I heard.
It's slightly more than 1,000.
Slightly more than 1,000. So we're very far away from 7,500 that London has on an equal comparison basis. Very far from the 10,000 that Hong Kong has on the road, despite their tremendous MTR services. Singapore, that is one-third the size of the Klang Valley, has 3,500 buses. Why aren't we putting emphasis? I mean, we're spending so much money, capital, developing the MRT. Why aren't we putting in money to develop these last mile services?
The London, the subsidy levels from the government are slightly in the region of about 60%. Here the subsidy levels are in the region of about 30%. That's one. If we were to increase, not to that 7,500, but an estimate of if we were to increase the SBST model in KL, it would be close to $1 billion a year, before taking into account the fares, slightly less than that. So these are the type of figures that we are talking about. So essentially what the government wants us to do is that in KL, at least LRT, the greater KL region, at least LRT has been provided for, MRT has been provided for. So for the buses, what the government said is that, no, let's try this out in the other state capitals. That's why we are trying it out first in the other state capitals. And after that, it'll be for us to try to convince that to implement it in KL or not. But the specific question about the feeder buses, the same issue about the 450 comes in. The more feeder buses you run at the moment, the more losses you make. Now, to run a bus, to run a stage bus, the operating cost of running is about between 4 ringgit to 4 ringgit 50 cents, around that. So, for the operator to recoup back that amount, that means he must recoup back an amount which is enough to cover the entire OPEX cost. Now, if he were to put in more buses, his OPEX costs will go up. But his revenue collection, because every single feeder bus service in GKL area, Greater KL area, is making losses. Same situation as the old operator in Seremban now. Why do I want to make more service when I'm going to incur more losses? So what happens is that the operator tries to minimize his or her losses by making sure that one feeder bus covers as much of the area as possible, so that you reduce your OPEX. And when you want to do it that way, what happens? I sent out my colleagues, my youngsters, I sent them out. You just go anywhere you want. Basically we bought some touch and go cards for them. So just go anywhere. And then you go anywhere and then you take the bus, you take the feeder bus, and then you come to the station. And you tell me how long it took you from the time that you went to that housing area, how long it took you to come, for the bus to come, first. Second is that how long it took you from the time you boarded the bus to the time to come to the LRT station. So we asked them, we don't need consultants, we don't need this, just buy some touch and go cards and send them out. Now the results were that basically, if the journey on the feeder bus takes 15 minutes, the person, on average, the person had to wait 1.7 times that 15 minutes. And bear in mind, that the person went random. It's not like he went just after the first bus left. It could be that somebody who went before him is even waiting longer. The time taken, that 15 minutes or the half an hour on that feeder bus, the time taken, if you were to take the most direct route from that stop to the urban rail station, the LRT station or the monorail station, KVM station, the travel time was actually close to 60% longer. So these are the reasons why feeder bus also, essentially it boils down to the cost. It boils down to the cost, it boils down to the fact that the recovery is not much for the operator. Now the operator has got to minimize his losses also. So there are always questions that, why you take such a big bus? Why, something that costs 450? Why don't you take something like a minibus? If any, let me tell you this, if any operator were to come to us and say that, look, I want to run a feeder service to this bus, to this rail station, to Taman Bahagia LRT station, using minibus, can you approve the permit? While I'm not the approving authority for the permit, I will certainly recommend approval. But not a single private company has come to us and said that, look, I'm prepared to do this. With shorter buses, I have less operating costs. You just give me the permit approval, I'll run the feeder service. No. Why? Because the fare is not attractive. We have no choice.
Do you allow bus mili wilayah to do that?
Dulu, the bus mili wilayah, the percentage of population using public transport was much higher. That's why before that, at that time when they were doing it. Now the percentage is much lower because so many people are not using it anymore.
I think one of the challenges, again, I talked about it just now in terms of Prasarana. Prasarana can afford to buy like new double-decker buses that cost probably about R1 million, more than the 600,000 that you quoted. And the argument is that we don't have enough drivers, so better for us to operate, to buy double-decker buses to operate certain routes, because we have lack of drivers. But my contention would be, why don't we pay drivers more? Actually, by paying the drivers more, the cost is actually not significantly higher, and in fact, probably lower than the cost of buying these double-decker buses. I give you another example. I didn't have time just now, but just to chucho a bit more. You talk about fares, right? Let me just give you an example. Anyone here taken the Sunway BRT before? Can I put up your hand? No. 1, 2, 3. Got lah. Got. What is the end-to-end cost? Do you all know? It's about 6 ringgit. You know how long that distance is? 6 kilometers. So it's about 1 ringgit per kilometer. Right? So on a per kilometer basis, it's really high.
Taxi fare.
Yes. And how much did they spend on the buses? It's electric buses imported from China. I checked the cost. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's probably more than R1 million a bus, one bus. And the OPEX is also higher. Right? So, on that particular model alone, can it really be justified? Our BRT model is much more expensive than other countries' BRT model. And that has to do with the CAPEX and the OPEX part. Because the CAPEX was very high, 600 million ringgit to construct one 5.4 or 6 kilometer stretch. To justify the fare of 1 ringgit per kilometer, is because of the construction cost, right?
No,
so
we don't take capital cost.
Yeah, but
we don't take capital cost.
Then how can you account for the price that's one ringgit per kilometer? It's much higher than the normal LRT fare.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
But it's not because of the capital cost.
Then it's because of the OPEX. Operational costs that are higher, because of the buses that are more expensive to buy and run. Right?